Donald Trump's financial secrecy has fueled years of speculation and legal battles. Unlike any modern president before him, the public's demand for transparency isn't just curiosity, it's about ensuring the president's decisions aren't swayed by personal gain or hidden debts. Financial transparency is a safeguard against conflicts of interest, especially when a global businessman becomes commander-in-chief. Investigations and court fights over Trump's records have only intensified questions about trust and accountability in government. As Trump's second term unfolds, his financial opacity forms the backdrop to Supreme Court decisions that are reshaping American law and power. Understanding the link between his secret finances and his use of presidential power is key to grasping the changes now transforming the nation. The stakes are not just about dollars, they're about the future of democratic accountability. The Supreme Court, now with a solid conservative majority, stands at the center of a profound transformation in American law and governance. With several new justices appointed in recent years, the ideological balance of the court has shifted, and its decisions are rippling across the nation. In 2025, the court has issued a series of landmark rulings that are not only redefining presidential power and individual rights, but also reshaping the relationship between the branches of government. These decisions are being closely watched by legal scholars, politicians, and everyday Americans alike, as their consequences reach far beyond the courtroom. One of the most significant changes is the court's decision to end nationwide injunctions. Previously, a single federal judge could halt a federal policy across the entire country, but now, opponents must challenge policies on a case-by-case basis. This makes it much more difficult to block federal actions, and has fundamentally altered the legal landscape. In the high-profile case of Trump versus U.S.A., this shift meant that those seeking to challenge presidential actions could no longer rely on sweeping court orders. Instead, they must now pursue individual lawsuits, a process that is slower and more complex, ultimately strengthening the hand of the presidency. The court's recent decisions increasingly favor centralized executive power, limiting the ability of lower courts to check the president's authority. This trend has sparked intense debate about the future of checks and balances in the American system. These rulings have immediate and tangible impacts, weakening workplace protections, narrowing the scope of disability rights, and making it harder for vulnerable groups to seek redress in the courts. For many Americans, these changes are already being felt in their daily lives, from the workplace to the classroom. Critics, including several dissenting justices, warn that this trend erodes the traditional system of checks and balances and threatens the rule of law. Protests have erupted outside courthouses, and legal experts caution that the consequences could be far-reaching and unpredictable. Justice Jackson's powerful dissent highlighted the potential chaos of a system where laws can be legal in one state and illegal in another, creating confusion and uncertainty for citizens and officials alike. The Supreme Court's actions have set the stage for a new, uncertain era in American governance, where the boundaries of presidential power and individual rights are being tested as never before. As the nation watches, the power of the presidency is being tested and redefined before our eyes, leaving Americans to wonder what the future holds for democracy and the rule of law. The Supreme Court's recent ruling on the National Guard drew a clear line on presidential authority. The court blocked Trump's attempt to deploy the Illinois National Guard against the governor's wishes, reaffirming limits on federal power. This decision, from a conservative majority court, underscored that even sympathetic justices see boundaries to executive reach. Governors retain significant control over their state guard units. The president can't use them as a federal police force without strong legal grounds. The ruling sets a precedent for future disputes between the White House and states over military control. Even with a powerful presidency, the court reminded the nation that federalism still matters. Presidential power is not absolute. Supreme Court rulings may seem distant, unfolding in marble courtrooms far from our daily routines, but their effects are immediate and deeply personal. Every decision handed down by the justices can alter the course of ordinary lives, often in ways that aren't obvious until they hit home. Whether you're following the news or not, these rulings can change the choices available to you, your family, and your community. In Medina versus Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, the court allowed states to defund clinics, cutting off essential health care for low-income women. This isn't just about politics, it's about real people losing access to basic medical services they rely on. The decision means that for many, cancer screenings, STI testing, and contraception are suddenly out of reach. For some, it's the difference between catching a disease early or facing a life-threatening diagnosis later. It's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can get care when you need it. The court also upheld a Tennessee law banning gender-affirming care for transgender youth, signaling that states can pass similar laws. For families with transgender children, this means facing new barriers to care, and for many young people it means losing access to support that can be life-saving. These decisions don't just affect individuals, they create a patchwork of rights across the country, where your zip code can determine your access to healthcare, your rights, and your future. This deepens inequality and leaves millions unsure of what protections they truly have. In EMD Sales Inc. v. Carrera, the court made it easier for employers to deny overtime pay, weakening worker protections that many depend on. For countless workers, this means longer hours without fair compensation, making it harder to support their families or get ahead. These decisions aren't just legal theory, they shape the health, rights, and economic security of millions. They determine whether families can pay their bills, whether children get the care they need, and whether workers are treated fairly. A single ruling can mean losing your healthcare provider, your right to fair pay, or your ability to make decisions about your own body. The consequences are felt in doctors' offices, at kitchen tables, and in workplaces across the nation. The Supreme Court's choices ripple through every community, from small towns to big cities, touching lives in ways both visible and invisible. No matter where you live, these decisions shape the world around you. The law is not just abstract, it's lived reality, woven into the fabric of our daily lives. Every Supreme Court decision is a reminder that justice, or the lack of it, is something we all experience, every single day. Supreme Court decisions are changing daily life, often stripping away protections people once relied on. In Stanley v. City of Sanford, the court ruled the ADA doesn't protect retirees, leaving millions vulnerable to benefit cuts. Companies can now change health plans, harming former employees with chronic conditions, with no legal recourse. The court preserved preventive care coverage for now, but the administration's actions threaten its future. Undermining scientific panels could mean higher costs for basic services like mammograms and vaccines. Politicizing healthcare decisions creates uncertainty and new barriers to care. These shifts leave Americans to fend for themselves against powerful interests. The safety net is unraveling, one decision at a time. Trump's refusal to disclose his finances has deepened public mistrust and fueled suspicion about his motives. Every presidential decision is now shadowed by doubts. Does it serve the country or Trump's business interests? The secrecy erodes faith in institutions and makes compromise harder. Legal battles to keep financial records hidden only reinforce the perception of something to hide. This lack of transparency is the backdrop for Trump's push to expand executive power and reduce oversight. The fight over financial records is really about what kind of leadership and accountability Americans expect. Transparency is not just tradition, it's essential for democracy. The Trump presidency has targeted the independence of federal agencies, threatening to turn them into political tools. In Trump versus Wilcox, the Supreme Court signaled it may let presidents fire agency heads at will, eroding long-standing checks. If agency leaders can be dismissed for political reasons, their credibility and impartiality vanish. This would make agencies like the NLRB and EEOC extensions of the president's agenda, not neutral enforcers of the law. The push to control agencies is part of a broader strategy to consolidate executive power. The fight over agency independence is about whether laws are enforced fairly, or at the whim of whoever holds the Oval Office. As 2025 draws to a close, America stands at a pivotal crossroads. The nation is grappling with a presidency marked by increasing secrecy, where decisions are made behind closed doors, and the public is often left in the dark about the motivations and consequences. This growing opacity at the highest levels of government has left many Americans questioning the very foundation of their democracy. At the same time, sweeping Supreme Court rulings have dramatically expanded executive power, shifting the balance between the branches of government. These decisions have far-reaching implications, not just for the presidency, but for the entire system of checks and balances that has defined the republic for centuries. The lack of financial transparency at the top has created a profound crisis of trust. Americans are left to wonder who truly benefits from these policies, and whether personal interests are being placed above the public good. Meanwhile, the court's recent decisions are steadily eroding rights and protections that many believed were secure. Protests have erupted across the country, as citizens demand that their voices be heard and their freedoms protected. It's now more difficult than ever to challenge federal policies in court, as legal barriers grow higher and access to justice becomes more limited for ordinary people. At the same time, it has become easier for employers to avoid paying overtime, leaving workers vulnerable and struggling to make ends meet in an economy that feels increasingly stacked against them. For retirees, new legal hurdles make it more difficult to fight discrimination and protect the benefits they've worked a lifetime to earn. States now wield greater power to restrict access to healthcare, leading to a patchwork of rights and services that vary dramatically depending on where you live. At the federal level, the independence of key agencies is under threat, as political interference undermines their ability to serve the public impartially. The combination of expanding power and shrinking transparency is a dangerous mix for any democracy, raising urgent questions about the future of American governance. The real question now is whether our system of government can withstand a leader who actively resists accountability, and whether the mechanisms designed to check power are still strong enough to do so. The choices Americans make in this moment, at the ballot box, in the courts, and in the streets, will define the balance of power for a generation. They will also shape the very meaning of accountability, justice, and democracy for years to come, setting precedents that future leaders will either follow or challenge. The intersection of Trump's finances and the Supreme Court's new direction is not just a story of one administration, it is a turning point that will shape the future of the American Republic for decades ahead.